And so, what's network formation? So I decided to make a small introduction. So in general, models can be structural, and a structural model tells you what properties a network does have. For example, a network would have power laws, a power law degree distribution. A generative model tells you whether there is a plausible physical or combinatorial explanation for the structural model. For example, preferential attachment is a great explanation of the structural model, but this is a plausible model. It's something that makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily have to be validated. Network formation, on the other hand, is there a provable or validated pathway towards the structural model? So the bar here is a little bit higher. It's not just plausible as in a generative model, but something that actually happens. And so there are many pathways to network formation. As it turns out, my slides are going to go in the reverse order of the speakers. Right? So the first pathway is behavioral. And here we model how individuals actually behave when they're forming a network with each other. Right? We don't try to understand what they're thinking. Right? We're just trying to understand how they're behaving. And so we can use this to analytically derive models of the final network just from their behavior and verify the model as well as the final structure using real data. And Michael Kunz is going to talk about it. He's wearing a different shirt today, but yesterday, the clothes he was wearing yesterday were exactly indistinguishable from what he's wearing in this picture. That's an older sweater, right? But it's like black and white. It looked exactly like.
Didn't have a little V yesterday.
Oh, well, okay, sorry. Sorry, I wasn't looking that closely. But he's going to talk about some behavioral.
Do this for all the speakers.
Well, not everyone has a. Not everyone has a Steve Jobs like dressing ethic, right? So it's hard to do it for everybody. So Michael has this lab. Among the other things he has done, he also has a lab that he runs on the side where he does behavioral experiments to see how undergrads actually act, using undergrads as guinea pigs to figure out how networks actually form. And I'm assuming that's what he's going to talk about. The next pathway to network formation is strategic. We're trying to understand what individuals are thinking, what they want, not just how they're behaving. And so once again, you can use this to analytically derive models of the final network. You can tweak rules of the game, such as benefits to individuals, cost to them, the functionality in the network to achieve desired outcomes. Right? So it's a bit more like you want to influence something. And these models, of course, need to be tractable. And this is it's a big agenda. So no one talk is going to cover the whole agenda. But Matt is going to talk about Matt Jackson, who's a colleague from the Stanford Business School in economics, is going to talk about strategic models of network formation. Okay. And then another pathway to network formation, which is completely sort of separate from the ones that we have talked about. So far, we had been talking about individuals. You can also talk about molecules. And a physical model could be you model how molecules act when they interact with each other and how that affects biological functionality. And Ben Yu, who's a statistician in Berkeley, is going to talk about that. And I don't understand this very well, so I'm not going to say anything more about this part. Okay. And finally, these models need to be tractable. And what that means is we need models that are tractable so we can work with them. The parameters are estimable. You can't have a model who's estimating whose parameters itself is like an optimization problem, which is going to take you on a 4-year research part to solving that, just finding parameters of that model. You can make predictions with the model. A model is useful only if you can use it to make predictions. You have to be able to verify your predictions and hypotheses. And then these models need to be somewhat sparse. The parameters need to be few in number. And Arun Chandrasekhar, who's a colleague from Stanford, also business school, who I just met. And so I wasn't actually sure that this was the right picture. But it's very blurry, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Is going to talk about some aspects of, and again, this is a big research agenda, but he's going to talk about challenges of modeling network formation in tractable ways. And all of this is adding up to 5 minutes. I had 10, so I thought I'll also give an example. There's an example from my own research where I feel like we've been able to get to the structural part and we are stuck on the network formation part. So it's an example, for example, how these network formation models, if they existed, and which we don't have, could be hugely influential. So we want to understand precision on social networks. Among the information that lands in your timeline, how much is relevant to you, right? And there's this, there are these two different memes. One is that people are addicted to social networks. The other is the media keeps talking about, why do I want to understand, what do I want to see whether someone had coffee or not? And so what we observed was this interest on users on social networks have a clustered structure. So these are sort of various interests and these are similarities between interests. So if I'm interested in X, that's not independent of whether I'm interested in Y. And then we also notice that users have broader consumption interests and narrower production interests. The set of things I want to learn about or I'm going to read, the set of news articles I'm going to read is much broader than the set of news articles I'm going to actually tweet about or write about. And so you can look at interest distributions and you can see that typically a user consumes 8 interests and talks about 4. And then what we observed was we could show that these two factors together could lead to social networks being high precision, and we verified that on Twitter. So among 10 people, we asked them to rate tweets in their timeline in blue and random tweets in red, and you could see that the average precision or the average relevance of tweets, the average fraction of tweets which in their own timeline which users thought were relevant was around 80%, and random tweets were completely uninteresting to people. And so all of this is good, right? But what does it have to do with network formation? We have no idea how this network forms. How do people with similar interests group together so the network is high precision? We also don't know why it forms that way, right? So this is like the how and the why. The how is behavioral, the why is more strategic. Why do users act the way they do? And if we understand the how and the why, so if we understand this network formation question, we can influence the process to achieve higher precision. So when you go to Facebook, maybe you will get, you'll have better friends, and so maybe you'll get better Facebook feed. You can increase growth in social networks. And you can do better recommendation systems and advertising. And these last 2 bullets are the main challenges, 2 main challenges faced by long-term challenges faced by social networks like Facebook and Twitter. So in a sense, if we had a good understanding of network formation, it could be hugely influential. So with that, I'm going to introduce the first speaker, Arun Chandrasekhar from Stanford.